if you have the book, read the page, mark what was difficult, and then watch my video to see if my explanations answer your questions. All right, let's continue reading chapter 1. And we almost finished the first page, which is actually page 3. I'm going to change that on the video thumbnail. So we'll start here and we'll read the next page. У мистера и миссис Дурсель был маленький сын по имени Дадли. И по их мнению, он был самым чудесным ребенком на свете. Семья Дурслей имела все, чего только можно пожелать, но был у них и один секрет. Причем больше всего на свете они боялись, что кто-нибудь о нем узнает. Дурсли даже представить себе не могли, что с ними будет, если выплывет правда о Поттерах. Миссис Поттер приходилась миссис Дурсель родной сестрой, но они не виделись вот уже несколько лет. Миссис Дурсель даже делала вид, что у нее вовсе нет никакой сестры, потому что сестра и ее никчемный муж были полной противоположностью Дурслям. Дурсли содрогались при одной мысли о том, что скажут соседи, если на Тисовую улицу пожалуют Поттеры. Дурсли знали, что у Поттеров тоже есть маленький сын, но они никогда его не видели. И они категорически не хотели, чтобы их Дадли общался с ребенком таких родителей. Когда во вторник мистер и миссис Дурсель проснулись скучным и серым утром, а именно с этого утра начинается наша история, ничто, включая покрытое тучами небо, не предвещало, что вскоре по всей стране начнут происходить странные и загадочные вещи. Мистер Дурсель что-то напевал себе под нос, завязывая самый отвратительный из своих галстуков. А миссис Дурсель, с трудом усадив сопротивляющегося и орущего Дадли на высокий детский стульчик, со счастливой улыбкой пересказывала мужу последние сплетни. Никто из них не заметил, как за окном пролетела большая сова неясыть. Okay, here is where we're gonna stop at the word неясыть, and now let's take a look at the previous page, what we had there. Okay, what we had there was у мистера и миссис Дурсель, у plus genitive был маленький сын по имени, да, по имени Дадли, so, которого звали Дадли, would be another way to say it. И, по их мнению, он был самым чудесным ребенком на свете. Personally, I don't really like this, по их мнению, because it sounds a little bit too formal for this type of a text. Like, I would say, и они считали его самым чудесным ребенком на свете. Они не думали, что это был самый замечательный ребенок на свете. However, in the original, we do have in their opinion. So that's why it appears here in this translation, although I feel like the Russian, по их мнению, is a little bit more formal than in their opinion in English. But I don't know. Он был самым чудесным ребенком на свете. I'm sure you guys remember that when we have the verb to be in the past or in the future tense, in this case we have the past, then it changes the noun, from the kind of like somebody, in this case he was a kid, to instrumental case. That's why we have самым чудесным ребенком. And so он самый чудесный ребенок, но он был самым чудесным ребенком, он будет самым чудесным ребенком. Now here the last word in the sentence, or like the last chunk in this sentence, is на свете, which literally means in the world, because свет, like right now, you probably know this word as the light we turn on when it's dark, but kind of like before, in a more archaic meaning, it also means the world. Увидеть свет in the past meant like to see the world. That's why we say кругосветное путешествие for traveling around the world. So, and we still use it quite often for this kind of like in the world, like он самый чудесный человек на свете. Больше всего на свете я хочу, like the thing that I want the most in the world, in the universe, and so on. Okay, now let's move on to the next one. So here we have семья Dursley, and then later we'll have Dursley, and that's just by using the kind of like plural form of the last name works in Russian too. Like Ivanovы means the Ivanovs family, like talking about them as a family unit. So in this case, the family of Dursleys, so that puts the word Dursel into genitive plural. Семья Dursley имела все, чего только можно пожелать. And пожелать, probably you might know it as like to wish something to somebody, and that's exactly what it is. So something they would wish basically to themselves. Чего можно пожелать. Иметь, да, это значит, у них было все, что только можно пожелать. Again, it's like a different way to say to have something. And again, register, stylistically register is a little bit higher. Но был у них и один секрет. So here we're using a more regular, they had something. У них был секрет. Now, in the original, this sentence is not broken down in two. And I'm not really sure why it is in Russian, but it reads pretty well. It just like, basically, they just changed the format here. Okay, причем больше всего на свете они боялись, more than anything in the world, they were afraid of something. And again, we have this на свете as we had here. Больше всего на свете я бы хотел, and then you can talk about, let's say, your dream about something. So in this case, больше всего на свете, more than anything in this world, like that was their biggest fear. And in English, that's like their greatest fear. In Russian, we say the greatest fear in the world. Что кто-нибудь о нем узнает. Дурсли даже представить себе не могли, что с ними будет, если выплывет. So they could imagine what would happen to them, что с ними, what literally will be happening with them. Let me see, what's it in English? So in English, they couldn't bear it if anyone found out. So I think it's a really good translation. They представить себе не могли, что с ними будет, what would happen with them if. And here we have the word выплывет. Правда выплывет. You can say that. It's more kind of like, like more phraseological expression, like правда или факты выплывут. Literally will swim out of something, out of that secret location. Okay, next in English we have a very simple thing. Mrs. Potter was Mrs. Dursley's sister. Well, in Russian we have a more difficult construction. Миссис Поттер приходилась миссис Дурсль родной сестрой. So that's the verb приходится кому-то, dative кем-то, instrumental. So this is dative. And родной сестрой. Ой for feminine we have here. That's instrumental. So that's a way of talking about when somebody is in relation to you. For example, он приходится мне двоюродным братом. Этот человек приходился моей маме дядей. That's just one way. I wouldn't say it's like very formal, like we can use it in colloquial speech too, but at the same time, we can also say она была ее сестрой. Okay, они не виделись вот уже несколько лет. I'm not really sure why the translator added вот, but it's more kind of like for emphasis. You can as simply say они не виделись уже несколько лет, but вот just adds a little bit more, I guess, to the kind of like harmony of the sentence. Но они не виделись вот уже несколько лет. In English, we have the verb they had met for several years. Here we have не виделись. Now, you probably know that to translate the verb to meet, we usually use встречаться, да, когда мы встречаемся. But видеться is a very good verb, meaning to kind of like see each other, to catch up, not necessarily putting an emphasis on kind of like almost like a formal meeting. So with friends I can ask, ну что, когда мы увидимся, like when will we see each other? Yeah. While, for instance, with my colleagues, if we need to discuss some project, I will ask, so когда мы встречаемся, чтобы обсудить проект? So видеться is like less formal one and emphasizes more kind of like I'm sorry, emphasizes a more kind of like personal connection. Окей, миссис Дурсель даже делала вид, что у нее вовсе нет никакой сестры. So she doesn't have a sister at all. And вовсе is kind of, that you probably know the word вообще. So you can say, что у нее вообще нет никакой сестры. That would be a more standard and simpler way to say it. Вовсе, again, the register, stylistic register is just a little bit higher. Потому что сестра и ее никчемный муж были полной противоположностью Дурслям. Никчемный means, so in English, let me check, it's good for nothing. That's exactly what it is, a pretty good, I also accidentally, that's никчемный also has you in it. Basically, ни к чему, like not good for anything. Никчемный муж были полной противоположностью. So in English, it's undurslyish, as it was possible to be. So in Russian, we say они были полной противоположностью, a complete opposite to dursleys. So in this case, again, we have the verb to be in the past tense. So that would be instrumental case. So он моя полная противоположность, but он был моей полной противоположностью. And Дурслям, in this case we have dative, да, они были мне полной противоположностью. Они были им полной противоположностью. Okay, let's continue. Дурсли содрогались при одной мысли о том, что скажут соседи, если найти свою улицу пожалуют Поттера. You probably know the expression «добро пожаловать», which means literally welcome. And when we greet the guests, we would say «добро пожаловать в мой дом», проходите. But пожаловать is also basically the verb to express visiting. And it can be used in a good sense, да? И вот, наконец, пожаловали дорогие гости. But also can be used in a sarcastic sense. О, смотрите, кто пожаловал. Meaning, oh, look who appeared, maybe unannounced, or maybe who appeared, and we really didn't want this person to be visiting. So here it's used in the sarcastic way. Пожалуют. Basically, Поттер пожалует, meaning nobody really wants them there, but they will come to visit. Okay, let's continue. Поттеры знали, Дурсли знали, что у Поттеров тоже есть маленький сын, но они никогда его не видели. И они категорически не хотели, чтобы их Дадли общался с ребенком таких родителей. Категорически, like literally means categorically, but in Russian we use it in like absolutely, like он категорически против. Я категорически против. And usually we use it in the expression with против. So категорически не хотели sounds a little bit odd to me, but I guess you can use it in a sense like они были категорически против того, чтобы их Дадли общался с ребенком таких родителей. Окей. Когда во вторник мистер и миссис Дурсель проснулись скучным и серым утром, so you definitely know the verb утром, I'm sorry, the word утром, not the verb, and the same as like вечером, ночью, днем, and we use them as adverbs of time. Yeah, we say they don't ever change. At the same time, you really definitely notice that this form is the instrumental case of the word утро, or день, or ночь, or вечер. So that's why when we add any type of adjectives to it, that will appear in the instrumental case. Например, этим вечером, or тем утром, or how we have it here, скучным и серым утром. That's when it was happening. А именно с этого утра начинается наша история. Ничто, включая покрытое тучами небо. Okay, let me check what it is in English. Dull gray Tuesday. Nothing about the cloudy sky. Okay, so in English we just have a cloudy sky. So here we're using a gerund, passive gerund in the past tense, покрытое тучами небо. Yeah, I mean, definitely paints the picture of kind of like very cloudy sky. Yeah, so that's, I guess, one way to express it. Okay, ничто не предвещало. So in English there was nothing about. In Russian, they're using the word предвещало, which literally means to foretell. Yeah, like a fortune teller can basically предвестить, предвещает. Ничто не предвещало. Nothing would tell you what happens in the future. That's how we literally say it. Что вскоре по всей стране начнут происходить странные загадочные вещи. Here we have the word вскоре, and that's again kind of like stylistically more formal way to say the word скоро, that you probably know скоро, soon. Вскоре is another way to say скоро. Вскоре по всей стране начнут происходить странные загадочные вещи. Yep, strange and mysterious things will soon be happening all over the country. Okay. Мистер Дурсль что-то напевал себе под нос. Напевал, as he was like humming something. Yep, hummed. That's what we have. And we can also say Mr. Дурсль что-то напевал, завязывая свой галстук. Напевал себе под нос. It's kind of like a longer way of saying it. Literally humming. And the sounds go into the area underneath the nose. So we use pod plus accusative again, because it's basically the motion from underneath his nose. Yeah, I guess it goes like that from the mouth. And we use this под нос when we say something that's intended only for us. So, for instance, we can say он что-то бубнил себе под нос, like he was mumbling. We cannot hear, but we can hear the sounds are going. Or он что-то сказал себе под нос. So he clearly said something, but he didn't want anybody to hear. Like he said it to himself, just to express his reaction to something. Or in this case, he was humming something, like you don't really need to translate this underneath the nose, especially since, we're looking at the translation of just the English humming. Под нос is a very interesting expression, underneath your nose. Oh, and then we have a probably pretty difficult structure of a sentence, because we have a lot of gerund here. So here we have Дурсль что-то напевал себе под нос, завязывая. Yeah? So this я shows us that that's a active gerund in the present tense, which means while he was doing it, while he was, tying his ugly tie, he was humming something. So these, these two things are happening at the same time. So he is humming while he, was tying his tie. And in the English original, it says as he picked out his most boring time for work. Here, завязывать is to actually tie it. Yeah. А миссис Дурсль, с трудом усадив сопротивляющегося орущего. Да, длинный высокий стульчик. So here we have a gerund, усадив, and this v at the end shows us that it's the past tense. So she did So с трудом усадив, after she put Dudley in this chair with effort. So that shows us that he, at the point of when we are looking at the scene, Dudley is already in his chair. Yeah, so that's completed action. Now, сопротивляющегося и орущего, that's a participle of the present tense that and it refers to the time when she was putting him into the high chair, and at that point он сопротивлялся и орал, if we just use the verbs. Сопротивляющегося и орущий, сопротивляться means to put up a fight or to resist something, and it can be used like literally, like сопротивляться in a physical sense, to fight back in a physical sense, or сопротивляться чему-то не физическому, so something not physical, like we're resisting the idea, он сопротивляется этим изменениям, and so on. And орать is to basically scream loudly. And here we have сопротивляющегося и орущего. Once again, that's the participles. Okay, lots of difficult words on this page. На высокий детский стульчик со счастливой улыбкой пересказывала мужу последние сплетни. She gossiped away happily. So she was basically telling him all the gossip, рассказывала ему сплетни. We can say рассказывала мужу сплетни or пересказывала. You're probably familiar with the word пересказ because sometimes in language classes, when you read the text, you kind of have to пересказать or say it with your own words, what happened in the text, or kind of like have a short summary. So in this case, we use пере when it comes from somebody else. So пересказывала сплетни means like she heard them from somebody else, and now she's telling him about what gossip she heard. Никто из них не заметил, как за окном. We saw за before when Mrs. Dursley was kind of looking behind people's fences, and we used on that page we used за plus accusative, but here we are using за plus instrumental. So because here it's not a destination, it's a location. So when we say she was like looking behind the fence, it's almost like the destination of how her kind of like glance goes. So она смотрела за забор. But if we say behind the fence is the location, we would be using за plus instrumental. За забором. Я припарковал машину за домом. And in this case, за окном, behind the window, that's за plus instrumental because it's location. Пролетела большая сова неясыть. So пролетела, we have the verb of motion лететь with the prefix pro. So if that's the window, yeah, so the bird, yeah, the bird, okay, forgive me, и она пролетела. So we use pro when we talk about specific distance. So in this case, she basically just went, yeah, in this visible frame from here to here, and that's why it's пролетела. So that's why we're using this prefix here. Большая сова неясыть. Since it's different types of owls in this book. In the English version, it's a large tawny owl. So this is basically такая рыжая, бурая сова. And I guess I don't really know that much about birds and owls, but I guess this is the сова that is both large and tawny. So сова неясыть. Okay, sorry if it was a little bit all over the place, but hopefully it was useful. So read the next page and mark everything that's not clear and see if in the next video I can address your questions.